Now, Isha has a few questions. Can you answer them, Mr. Rugani?
Sure, no problem.
All right, so first of all, I wanted to say thank you so much for using your time to be here today. It's really helpful towards our viewers and it really helps students struggling about what electives they should choose. So many students may worry about their grades and abandon their progress. I know many people that were confused and worried about how their grades were going to be determined in my school. So can you please explain how the grading system works in Pine Valley Middle School's band and how does it focus on students' improvement rather than a simple number?
So the grades, hmm, it's kind of weird because there's this year for COVID grades and then there's the normal. I'll kind of talk about normal because that's hopefully what we'll be doing next year. Because this year a lot of the grade is basically just participation. Like do this assignment the best you can. I'll give you comments on how you did, and yeah, so just follow directions, turn it in, and you get a grade. Boom, yay! So there's a lot of that. Sometimes we have that also with grades at normal circumstances. Um, so I don't do a lot of tests in music. Um, I do a lot of assessment, but it's kind of every day I'm listening to students play and like fix this, fix this. I don't believe that we need to do a lot of tests to see how students are doing. I can either just have them play in class, say, Isha, why don't you play that for me? Let me hear how it sounds. That's great. Can you try this next time and fix that? Great, awesome. And then I'll listen for it. I'll be like, oh yeah, sounding much better. So I don't necessarily have to do a lot of quizzes and a lot of tests. Some things like scales and whatnot that I'm like, okay, these are essential skills. We need to play them and learn them. I will give quizzes, tests, whatever you want to call them on those. Um, my main goal though with teaching a concept is I want the student to get it. I don't really care what about a grade they get. Their grade will, I guess, go with whatever they do. So I want them to follow directions and do what they need to. If let's say they play a test, whatever, a playing test of a scale or something else, and they totally bomb it, whatever. The main thing to understand is certainly if it's something that's in class, like they're playing in front of the class and they're playing something like that, and I'm grading them on it. That is a snapshot of how they're doing on that day at that time in front of people. That's not really a fair assessment of how they really can play their instrument with all of those things going against them. So, but that's a very important life skill to be able to, for like getting used to job interviews and everything else in life, to be able to present what you have in front of people. And like the more you do it, the better you become. So I encourage students to do that. I want them to do that. And if they, let's say, if they fail at that, that's okay. They can always redo it. And usually when they redo it, I'm like, okay, let's redo it after school, or let's do it at AP, or let's find another time to do it. If you want to redo it in front of everybody, I'm not going to stop you from doing that. But if you want to take that out and just play it for me, let's do that. That'll make it easier. So I want to make sure a student gets the concept and can do it. Um, so I want to make sure so they can retake tests over and over and over and over. And I usually say, okay, the last day to do this is this day. You have to make sure any retakes you're doing are this day. Um, so even this year doing that, like we're going over scale, like sixth graders are playing scales now and they're recording them in Google Class or on Flipgrid, and I'm grading them. And so then I give them comments. And if they need to redo it, I'm like, you can redo it and get up to 100 points or the full point value, 100% on the assignment back. But you have to redo it. So take my comments, work on it. If you want to come see me for student support before you do that, great, awesome. So that's not really much different than how I normally would do things. Because I'm really, when you do a test and you play something, that's a snapshot of one time. And maybe you're having a bad day, and I don't think that should be the end all grade that you get because you were having a bad day or something happened and you're like, oh man, or you're nervous because people are watching you and you're like, oh, people are watching me play. All right, all those things. I think those are good things to have in life, that obstacles to have and put in your way and have to overcome. I think that's a good thing for people up to an extent. But at the same time, I do understand that that will affect someone how well they play. And I don't want them to feel bad that, oh man, I got a bad grade because I was having a bad day. It's like, okay, so you got a bad grade because you're having a bad day. Let's do it again. Redo it. Come see me for help, And sometimes students take me up on that. Sometimes students just don't redo it. And I'm like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm giving you opportunity to get all of the points for that, to get 100% on that. And I'm offering to give you the help to get you the point to do that. So that's the main thing with, so we only really get tested or quizzed or whatever on things that are like essential stuff, and like, okay, I really need to see how you play this year, so let's take this piece of music and play this section. Or you need to know how to play these scales, so I need you to play them. And you need to how to be able to play in time with a metronome, so I want you to play it in time, or whatever. The other grades that we have are, you come to the concert, you show up and you're dressed in your concert attire and you play the concert, boom, you get 100 points. Like, that's pretty easy. Because you've done all the work already, right? We worked on everything. Now you just have to show up and play. And then you get participation for being in class every day. So if you come with your instrument and your music and your pencil, and you come with a good attitude, ready to learn, boom, 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 you get participation points just for being there in class and following directions. If you don't have your instrument, or you forget your music, or whatever, then you get points deducted because you didn't do your job. Basically, I try to, a lot of my grades and whatnot, and you can ask people who've been my students. I put a lot of responsibility on the student. Like, okay, you need to do this. Here's how you do it. You need to do it. If you need help, let me know. Otherwise, you're going to do it. And if you fail, that's fine. I always say that failure is good. Okay, because fail helps you learn. So I have no problem with people failing, as long as they fail for a good reason, not because they just didn't do it. That's not really fail, that's laziness, right? But if someone fails because they just didn't quite get it, or they're having a hard time, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I like when students do that. I like it because I like to help them overcome that and get to the next level, and then see that, like, oh, yes, I get it. Like that kind of like that light bulb of, oh yes, I get it. Because we are all going to hit a wall with everything that we do that we want to be proficient in doing. Everyone's going to hit a wall at some point doing that, whether it's sports, academics, music, whatever. You're always going to hit a wall. You're always going to fail. And so it's okay. It's perfectly fine to fail, as long as you can learn from what you did wrong and learn how to fix it and learn to be better. So I try to make my grading with that philosophy. With, okay,
that's
it's okay
good.
to fail. It's okay to get a bad grade. Let's figure out how to get it better and make it better. But you're going to get the grade you earn. If you bomb a test and you don't go through the process of trying to redo it or get help, then if you got a D on a test, it's going to stay a D. I mean, I can't just change it and go, well, you didn't come see me, but I'm going to change it anyway. It's up to the student to make sure that they figure out what they did wrong, how to fix it. But I will help them overcome that and get the better grade that they want. But really, my goal is, I don't really care about the grade. I care about the student understanding how to play it, so we can move on to the next thing, which builds on the thing that they're struggling with. So basically, my grading, I try to approach the thing of, failure is fine. Let's learn from whatever you did wrong and figure out how to fix it and move on and bring ourselves up and fix it.
Yeah, it's about like the students' like diligence and like willingness to like learn and improve, I feel like. So yeah, that's good that you're flexible with the students' ability.
Yeah, as a student, I like how you really like consider the students' feelings, and it actually helps them grow more. So some people
I try to get it from a student's perspective, and I welcome like a student talking to me about how they're feeling or what's struggling with them, so then I can understand, because it's been a long time since I've been a middle school student. So sometimes I forget, like, I don't know, why
Yeah.
can't you do it? Well, I can't do it because of this. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, that's a good point.
So some people believe that academic electives are a better option than musical ones. So I know that many of my friends and some of the viewers out there believe the same exact thing. So what are the benefits to a musical elective, and how would you change their mind?
Um, I mean, I'd say no matter what you do for your elective, you need to do something that you want to do, regardless of what it is. I personally would not pick or have like my son when he grows up. I'm not going to have him do an elective because you know what? That's going to look better for you on a college application. If he doesn't want to do it, that would be silly for me to like say, you need to go do that because it's going to look that. If he says, but I want to learn how to basket weave, then I'll be like, okay, go learn how to basket weave. If that's what you want to do, then great. Awesome. Cool. Let's do it. And if you don't like that, then let's find something else. So I think regardless of whatever elective sorry, I should say whatever classes you can choose that you take. So there are classes, you don't really get to choose. Like you have to take math up to a certain point and then you can choose what math you do. You have to take English up to a certain point and then you can choose what English you get to do. But when you choose, when you get to the point that you get to choose, whether it's in middle school, high school, college, you need to choose things that you want, that you're interested in learning about. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful with it. So I mean, as a musician myself, like I said before, all my friends are musicians. My wife's a musician. If I go on Facebook, I'm like, all these people are musicians. A lot of my friends who are on Facebook that I've had recently, or parents or whatever, they're parents of students that are on my friends list because I'm a teacher that teaches music. So it's still, because of music. And so music is my life, and music has always been my life since second grade, and it's always been a part of me. And music's something that I can continue to do music, play music, whatever, be involved in music for the rest of my life till the day I die. As long as my body doesn't, that I don't get arthritis or something and I can't play, but then I could possibly go to something else, or I can write music, or I can do lots of different things involved in music. So anyway, I think regardless of what you're going to do, you need to pick an elective that you're interested in learning and want to do. I personally don't see a big difference between this class and this class and this class and this class besides the subject matter. Like, I don't think one is more important than the other. I think it's more important to whoever's taking it because you have to want to take it. So if you want to take dance, then you should take dance. If you want to take music, then you should take music. Of course, I'm always going to encourage people to take music, but if they don't want to, then they shouldn't. But that's a choice that they should be making, and they should want to do that. So I would encourage anybody who's looking to take whatever elective, whenever they get a chance to choose any class, even if it's not elective, when they're going to choose, they should choose stuff that interests them, that they're interested in learning more about, or whatever, and not just choose it because it checks off a box on their transcripts or whatever. They should do it because they want to. There are some classes that you have to check off check off the transcripts, but even then, like in college, certainly when you go to pick different classes, you still get to choose. Like you have to pick something about, you have to pick women's studies, but there's all these classes you can choose from for women's studies. It's not like you have to take this one class. Because I remember I took a women's studies class in college because I had to take something in that category area, but I had a choice of different things. So I picked women in literature because I was like, that sounds interesting. Cool, let's do that, right? So so you always need to pick something that seems to interest you, and you're going to have that buy-in, so you're going to do well in. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I definitely agree. You should do something you enjoy. So many students struggle with effectively improving in their music skills. So what's the best method that you suggest to improve one's musical skills? I know practicing is very important, but how often would you suggest to do so?
I kind of have a different philosophy of practicing than a lot of people, just because I know how it is. If I tell students you have to practice 30 minutes every single day with one day off in the week, that's not going to happen. Students aren't going to do that. I know that. So I always encourage students. I'm like, if you are an effective practicer, you can practice every other day for 15 in middle school, 15 to 20 minutes, and you will be fine. That will be fine. And then some days maybe you'll practice longer because you don't have as much homework. Some days you'll be like, well, I can't because I have the sports game or whatever. Okay, good. That's a day off of practicing or whatever. Or sometimes practicing isn't just sitting and playing your instrument. Like you could be figuring out rhythms and writing down the counting of the rhythms, clapping and counting through it, reading what the notes are, looking up terminology. Any of that stuff is practicing your skill at music. So any of that stuff would count. So just playing your instrument isn't the only kind of practice to do. Um, it's kind of, that's the skill that everyone's going to see the outcome of, but if you don't have all the other knowledge, it's you're not going to, you know, get to that level. So that's one of the main things. You kind of have to set up a schedule for yourself of practicing. But when you practice, to be, like I said, effective practicer, you have to sit down and have a goal of what you want to do. If you just sit down with your music in front of you and say, okay, I'm going to practice for 20 minutes, you're not. You're going to practice maybe 5 minutes out of that 20 minutes. And like students, I'll have students in middle school, and when they've turned in practice logs, they're like, okay, Mr. Rugani, I practiced for 2 hours on Saturday. And I'll look them in the eye and say, no, you didn't. You probably practiced for 15 minutes and wasted an hour and 45 minutes of your life. Because they probably had about 15 minutes of actual real good practicing, and then they probably kind of dilly-dallied around and were kind of like this and like playing with their instrument and kind of sitting there fiddling. Like if you took a video and actually counted how much time they did good actual practice, you'd probably find that they wasted about an hour and 45 minutes of their life. And I'm like, don't waste your life. Go in with a goal. You may not know how long it's going to take, but go in with a goal. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to practice it. Here we go. Bam. And then do it. Because that's going to be better for you.
Yeah, because like I remember we used to have practice logs, and it was like really detailed. Like we had to describe what days we practiced, how long we practiced, and like what pieces we worked on, like what measures we worked on. It was like really detailed, and then our parents had to sign them, and we turned them in like to Mr. Rugani for a grade. So I feel like that was really effective because like, yeah, that kind of helped me like, you know, like have a goal for this week. I'm gonna work on this, and yeah, I feel like practicing is like very important.
Yeah, and that's when I did those practice logs, because most people, they have a practice, and I used to do this too. They have a practice log, just write down how much you practice every day and get it signed. And I'm like, well, that doesn't really tell me anything. It just is practice, and you know, you could even lie about how much you practice, whatever. But so then I came up with, all right, well, let's do goals. So you actually are telling me what you want to work on, where and what you want to work on, and how you worked on it and how it went. So then I can look at that and I can go, okay, cool. This is what you worked on. This is how you worked on it. Great. And then I can also go through there and say, oh, all the trumpet players are having a hard time with this section. Maybe I need to work on that more with them because they're all struggling with it, or they're all putting it down as something. So maybe if nothing else, I just need to say, hey, trumpets, let's hear that section, how you guys play it. Oh, that's sounding awesome. You guys must have been practicing. And I can get that kind of information from their practice log. So having a goal and either writing it down or knowing exactly what you're going to do is an effective way. And you don't have to practice as long. You're going to just have boom. Because also a kid who's in middle school, who's been a 6th grader or 7th grader, says, I've been practicing 2 hours. I'll say, no, you're not. You can't practice 2 hours. Like your lips won't let you practice. Like you can't physically play that long your instrument. I know this because you're only in middle school. You haven't been playing long enough. Maybe when you're a junior or senior in high school, you could play for 2 hours straight. But I remember playing 2-hour gigs when I was in high school, and I like after playing a drum set, I'd be like, oh, my muscles hurt. Oh, this hurt, you know, and I'd be really tired. But I had done that a lot. Like I to play a 2-hour gig or play a musical or whatever wasn't a big deal by the time I was in high school because I had done it many times before. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question with that.
Yeah, it does. Next, I know that many students are grateful for all the music teachers out there that work so hard to improve student skills. So what's your motivation for playing and teaching young musicians?
My main motivation is I want to spread the love of the music out there. When I knew, I don't know exactly when, but early on before college, I knew I wanted to do something in music. And actually before college, because once I got to college, I knew I wanted to teach music. But I knew I didn't really want to gig, like playing concerts and stuff all the time, just because I didn't personally want to have that lifestyle of having to play every weekend and have rehearsals all the nighttime, and having a lot of my nights and stuff. Um, I didn't want to have that kind of lifestyle. Lots of people like, they're like, oh my God, I want to have it any other way. And I've done that. Like when I was younger, I had gigs all the time and it was great, but I didn't want to spend my whole life. That was the way I wanted to do music. Um, and um, I wanted to spread that love of music and go into teaching. And kind of once I went to teaching, I was like, okay, well, at this path, I'm not going to be able to spend all the time that I need to be even more proficient at my playing. Um, I either have to do that with my schooling, like to teach, or I have to do that with my instrument. And so I would have to do one or the other. And I'd have to say, okay, I'm either going to have to like fully go, I'm going to be a professional musician and play gigs all the time. And it's competitive out there. So I'm going to compete, with everybody else, and I'm going to be the best that there is. But I'd have to put in all that time, and I want to be able to teach. And for me, I guess I had that calling, kind of like, I should teach. I should share this passion of music with others and watch them grow. And so that's why I teach. I like the interaction with the students. I like to see them grow and mature as musicians, or even as people, but as musicians, and see them what they accomplish. Like we were talking about sixth graders before, seeing them in August and seeing them in June. I love that. Like I love that transition. And then their parents going, oh my gosh, like what, last year we went to the spring concert in fifth grade and it was horrible. I'm like, it wasn't horrible. Like they were at a different level then. They're at a different level now. Like it was awesome for the time that they were in fifth grade. Like it sounded great, but we're at a different level because we've had all this extra experience. So I just have a passion for wanting to share that with the students. And it's, I think that's what drives me. And like I said, all my friends are musicians. Musician friends are. I'm. I would like to say that they're the best friends in the world, but all my friends are musicians, so I don't have like a bunch of sports friends. I mean, I do. I'm an avid cyclist, so I do have friends that are cyclists who are awesome people also. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So I know that there's lots of groups with that, but I've made friendships that I know will be lifelong friendships, and I have friends throughout the United States and world who play instruments. And my wife, certainly going to NEC, she met people who were from all over the world going there. So she has friends who are all over the United States and the world who are musician friends. And so you have all this connection to people that I don't have that in the sports world. The only people I know who are outside of Contra Costa County, Alameda County area are people who have moved from here to another place. So it's the same people, just in another location. But that's basically all the people I know, and a few people I know from when I rode my bike when I lived in Boston. But so you have that community, and that's really awesome. Being a music nerd, like that term, like I was talking about this with a class last week. I was saying being a music nerd it's a good thing. Like having that, and a lot of students, they don't get that until they're like maybe sophomore year of college, high school, or junior, senior year. But usually by senior year, if they've been doing music their whole, middle school and high school, they're music nerds by the time they're seniors. They're proudly say, I'm a music nerd. And just having that, it's like people in drama their whole lives. They're drama nerds. Like that's an awesome community to belong to. And everyone should have some kind of nerd in them, right? Should be a music
Right.
nerd, an art nerd, drama nerd, whatever it is. And that nerd is not a bad thing, but everyone should have some kind of community that they belong to. That's like, this is my nerd community and I belong to them. And for me, that's music. And I want to share that nerd community with students, and I want them to become that in that same nerd community as me. I want them to feel that. I want the community to feel that.
I love the way you put it at the end. Yeah, I feel like it's important to be part of like a community, like to belong. So yeah, I feel like it's great you're doing that for like the students and our community.
Yeah, it's fun, and everyone needs a place where they, like, I've always felt with musicians that I belong. I mean, there's competition, don't get me, like when you do things you're competing to get a position in playing something or whatever, but even after that, like those same two people who are competing can be the bestest of friends or whatever, or even roommates. I mean, I in college I had three roommates. Three of us were percussionists, and the other roommate was a guitar player. and we didn't really compete. We were like the best friend. We did stuff all together all the time, and we were all percussionists. And one of them, Stan, I consider him being like the best musician I've ever met in my life. Like he's one of those guys who can kind of sit down and with a little bit of instruction can learn any instrument. He's a phenomenal percussionist. He's subbed with San Francisco Symphony before. And like, if I had to name like the top musicians I've ever met in the world, he would probably be my number one. And he's younger than me. Like he's younger than me, and but like he's just phenomenal. Like he's awesome. He's also just an awesome guy. He's a very down to earth and just kind of like very like just a nice guy. Like you'd meet him, you're like, oh, this guy's cool. And he doesn't like throw it in your face that he's awesome, but it's just like you watch him play and the stuff he plays and how he just analyzes it. And you're like, oh my God, like I could never do that. I'm a percussionist and I could never be at that level, even if I tried to be at that level. I don't think I have the aptitude to do that. So it just, that community is just awesome.
I definitely agree. Music really brings people together. So many musicians out there are facing obstacles and maybe steering away from the field. So did you ever have any second thoughts or obstacles in your path about becoming a musician? And if so, how did you get past them? And why did you continue being in the musical field? Because this advice can really help these individuals.
Trying to think if there was any. I mean, there's always obstacles. So I'm sure that I've second guessed being a musician at times. I know I've second guessed like, well, should I have played this instrument? And, learning to play other instruments, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have been more proficient at this or whatever. But I don't ever like regret being a musician. And yeah, there's been obstacles, but at the same time, like I've said, I have a community of people that I can talk to and help me work out things or say, I'm having a hard time playing this. How do I do it?